And last time we talked about the issue with moral relativists, and moral relativists have this kind of understanding that objective moral truth doesn't really exist, and that kind of what's true for me is true for me, and what's true for you is true for you. And if those two kind of compete against each other, well, then you're just in competition, and you have to figure out some way of, I don't know, interacting, or a utilitarian point of view,
or it's something. Okay, if that's morally right for you, then that's fine. That's
Right.
just morally right for you.
It's
right?
okay for me to punch you in the nose and you to take it. Okay, so sibling rivalry is a type of self-destruction for moral relativists when they object to the problem of evil. So what's this problem of evil? Well, the Odyssey is how do we deal with evil in the world if there's this good God that supposedly is out there, and how can you allow such evil and suffering and bad things to occur? Well, there's a lot of good points to that, and some books being written by author of Scott Christensen, who was on our show previously. He's finished up a book on just the subject alone, so hopefully we'll have him back on when he's ready to release the book. So he has a conversation with a person at a restaurant, and at first she talked like a relativist. Everyone has his own morality. Right and wrong is a private affair. Who's to judge? And he says, as their conversation ranged over other topics, though, the problem of evil came up. How could a God exist when there's so much evil and suffering in the world? So he says, I want you to know something about the problem of evil. The entire objection hinges on the observation that evil exists out there as an objective feature of the universe. And this is a serious problem for relativists. So according to relativism, when someone uses the word evil, he's expressing a personal preference, though.
So it's in there. It's the individual.
So which one is it? Is it out there, or is it in here?
Right. Is it objective, or is it subjective?
Right. So strictly speaking, the person is not talking about what they're actually talking about. The relativist is talking about himself. So, it's if you're referencing something that's out there, what the moral relativist should be doing is referencing internally. So
right.
To me, it's wrong.
Right. You can't say it's just wrong.
It's wrong out there.
It's just objectively wrong. It's wrong independent of what anybody thinks. You can't hold that as a moral relativist, right? Because the moral relativist says it's me, right? I determine what is morally right and wrong. It's not out there.
Right. So if relativism were true, talk of evil as an objection to God's existence would be nonsense. The complaint would mean nothing more than, if God were really good, he wouldn't allow things that I don't like.
Right.
And you see a lot of people arguing with this. Well, if God is real, he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't make the giraffe with this type of internal blood thing like Dawkins wants to do. Well, okay, sure. Well, you be God, and then you can make the giraffe however you want to.
Yeah.
There's a quote here he has from C.S. Lewis that says, of course, he summed it up this way. Of course, I could have given up my idea of justice by saying it was nothing but a private idea of my own relativism. But if I did that, then my argument against God would collapse too. For the argument depended on saying that the world was really unjust, not simply that it did not happen to please my private fancies.
Right.
And so when we talk about things like justice and truth and goodness and badness, we tend to ultimately appeal to things out there. So someone should be punished for this. Well, why? First, we got to go to that person and see if it's wrong for them. Then, if they allow themselves to be punished for it, then we can ask them to allow us to punish them for it, right? That's what we should do. But no, we talk about things like, murder and rape and torture and all those different examples that come upon us when we're talking about moral claims. We talk about things like, well, how do we establish justice? In what way do we render justice here on earth in this time? We talk about justice reform, and we talk about all these things that have to do with prison systems and different modes of punishment and how it's changed over time. And so there, it's kind of appealing to a standard by not just might makes right, but we're appealing to a form of natural justice, justice that exists out in the world that we're trying to define and bring in and secularly within the scope of the law, we're trying to discover capital L, the law.
Right. And of course, the moral relativist can't hold the position, doesn't hold the position that it's out there.
Right.
Any values are out there.
Yeah.
They're all in here.
Right. The lowercase l. So there's where the sibling rivalry comes into play. Capital L, the law, is out there, and we're trying to discover it. But really, lowercase l, law is within each of us, and so we should discover what fits our fancy. And so when we talk about things like justice, and we have a sense of that person should be punished, we're holding incongruent views there. And so which one wins out? Right. And that's what we want to ask. That's where our Columbo questions gets that person to ultimately say, am I a 7'2" Asian female that is 6 years old? And you've seen that a lot on campus reforms videos, and where they go out to college campuses and ask those questions and say, can I believe this? Well, you can believe it if you want to. Okay, but is it truthful? Well, it's true for me. And so that's where it starts kind of spiraling down, and you see that. And there are legitimate repercussions that happen from holding these viewpoints. And so within the scope of our determination of faith and truth about religious claims, asking these questions is where we're going to kind of get the most bang for our buck. It's going to come up, and so this is a kind of a proper way to deal with it, again, so that no one gets angry. You're pointing out flaws within the person's point of view that they're bringing to you, and you're having a dialogue rather than a monologue. So that's what we're doing here.
And so he says here, to say that something is evil is to say that it's not the way that it's supposed to be, right? So there's a standard is really what he's getting at here. So he says this makes no sense unless things are supposed to be different, right? Or there is a way that things are supposed to be, right? Yet this is what the relativist denies. There isn't a way, universally, objectively, that things, morally speaking, that the way things are supposed to be, right? They're what each individual believes that they are in terms of morality. And so the problem here then is that when you make these types of claims, God is why, God is evil, basically is what you're saying, right? Why would a loving God do this kind of thing? If you're a moral relativist, morality is subjective, but you're trying to make evil, another value, objective. And so now you have these two siblings at rivalry, right? They're fighting each other, right? So either it's objective or it's subjective, but it can't be both, right? That's the idea. Morality is either objective or it's subjective, can't be both. There's huge problems, as we pointed out last time, with morality being subjective, right? It's only what I think, right? And so, but it can't be both. It can't be subjective and objective. And so you need to point this out and ask people, what do they really mean, right?
It's subjective, and that's just the way things are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you can't say that anybody's action, even God's, are evil.
Right.
They may be evil to you, but that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
God has more might, so he's more right. There you go.
Yeah.